What's up everyone, it's Opetaia. Signed with Zuffa Boxing now, so pumped for the future. Exciting times, man. Let's get these big fights over the line. Unification, undisputed soon. Let's go.
All right, so Jai Opetaia has signed with Zuffa Boxing, a co-promotion deal between Tasman Fighters and Zuffa Boxing. For me, it came as a massive surprise. Obviously, this is not the first time we've seen Tasman Fighters and Jai Opetaia be co-promoted. If you remember a few years ago, it wasn't even a few years ago. It was actually, might have been within the last 24 months. Tasman Fighters deal with Matchroom Boxing, much of that led by Eddie Hearn in promoting Jai Opetaia, a few of those fights happening in Riyadh season and so on. So it's not the first time that we've seen Tasman Fighters team up with a major worldwide promoter. I guess the biggest surprise was that it was Zuffa Boxing, because Zuffa Boxing, much in its infancy, this weekend they're going to hold their first ever Zuffa Boxing event. So it's not a clear name like a Queensbury Promotions or a Matchroom Promotions or even a Golden Boy or a PBC. It's a very new organisation, which leaves a lot of mystery behind what we can expect for Jai Opetaia, what events he's going to be a part of, what cards, where, and everything else. Now, Tasman Fighters has released a statement talking about the partnership. This is an incredibly exciting partnership for everyone involved. Jai Opetaia is already a world champion, but we firmly believe he's going to establish himself as a major name in the United States and beyond. Now, that is a main part of this deal, because I know for a long time Jai Opetaia was trying to build his reputation and his name in England and in Europe. And, you know, United States or Europe, you can conquer both. And I think he is probably a bigger name in England and in Europe than he is in the United States, because he has done a few fights in Riyadh under Matchroom Boxing. So I do believe his name, although not a massive star in England, he is a known name in England. I'm not sure how much of that has translated so far to the US, but this deal here, putting on major fights where Jai Opetaia is the star, that he's the world champion, will build him as that superstar. Because if there's one thing the US love, all right, and boxing fans in general, is somebody that goes out there, he entertains, and he fights. And that is what Jai Opetaia is, all right? Jai Opetaia goes in there and he tries his best to knock his opponent out and to showcase his ability as a boxer and as a fighter. And in the US, I see so much slander about people like Shakur Stevenson, Devin Haney, because, yeah, they are hit and not get hit fighters. They are movement. They are, you know, Tom and Jerry, you know, is a word that gets put with those names a lot. I don't believe that's true. I think Shakur Stevenson showed in his last fight against William Opetaia that he's just as good in defense as he is in offense, but he's not that go-forward fighter. He's not that real entertaining fighter that Jai Opetaia is. Every time Jai Opetaia goes in that ring, he tries to knock somebody out, and every time he goes in there, he seems to hurt somebody, and that's what the US fans love. That's what Dana White and the UFC love, and that's why this deal makes so much sense to make. Now, Jai Opetaia is the leading way for Australian boxing right now. He's shown what possible with hard work, discipline, and belief. Jai Opetaia has said, "It's exciting times. I'm pumped for the future. I can't wait to see what big fights get made, to fight in the US, put on a show, fight for the fans. This is where I want to be. This is where I belong. I'm ready to prove myself on the biggest stage." Jai Opetaia is that guy, and I do believe that. I believe he's somebody that is going to be undisputed at cruiserweight and make waves at heavyweight. All right, we won't know how much waves at heavyweight, because it is a massive step up. All right, Alexander Usyk and what he's done moving from cruiserweight to heavyweight is extraordinary. All right, and I think Jai Opetaia has the boxing ability to do that, but it is a massive move, and things in heavyweight can go wrong very, very quickly with the size and the power that everybody holds. All right. But in terms of what is going to happen at cruiserweight for Jai Opetaia, it is very, very exciting, because teaming up with Zuffa Boxing, being able to star on massive cards in the US that Zuffa Boxing are saying they're going to hold, is exciting. The fact that Zuffa Boxing has allegiance with Ring Magazine, you know, Callum Walsh was that big name on Zuffa Boxing's list, and he got put co-main for Canelo versus Crawford. That is the type of stage that Jai Opetaia deserves to be on, and this is now going to grant him the opportunity to be parts of these cards, to be put on these stages. I mean, the amount of people that streamed and spoke about Canelo versus Crawford on Netflix was unbelievable, and Jai Opetaia now making this deal with Zuffa Boxing, which has allegiance with TKO Group, which has allegiance with Turki Al Sheikh, is that opportunity for Jai Opetaia. Now, There is just one big question that is being circulated and circulated and circulated, and honestly, I still don't have the answer for you. I have my theory on it, and we're going to get to that, is how does it work with his belts? Now, he continually says he wants to be unified, he wants to be undisputed, but Zuffa Boxing and Dana White continually say that they're not going to recognize any belts apart from Zuffa and the ring belt. Now, that becomes a big talking point, because you're not going to become unified or undisputed if they're not recognizing those belts and other fighters aren't fighting on your cards because they have the belts. All right, so the big names could be taken away. Now, for me, and what my theory is, I feel like Dana White and Zuffa Boxing have a long-term goal of having the ring belt and the Zuffa belt as their belts. But that's a long-time goal, right? I think that is a 10-year, a 12-year, a 15, a 20-year plan of eventually it's going to be Zuffa and it's going to be ring. Unfortunately, right now, if you want to put on the big fights, if you want to hold the big events, you can't start excluding those other governing bodies, because fighters want to fight under them. Fighters want those belts. Fighters see it as 4 opportunities at becoming a world champion: the WBA, the WBO, the WBC, and the IBF. All right. So for me, at the moment, they can't exclude that. Whilst they're trying to build a roster, whilst they're trying to build events, they're just going to have to swallow their tongue a little bit, swallow their pride, and say, no, we're recognizing them all. But I would quite like them just to come out and sort of state that and make it clear what's going to happen with Jai Opetaia and if they sign other world champions. But if you now look at Zuffa Boxing and you say, who is the crown jewel in Zuffa Boxing and their roster, and you're saying Jai Opetaia is at the moment the king of Zuffa Boxing and the best boxer and the best fighter that they have on their roster. And that is a big, big thing for Jai Opetaia, because we see what the UFC is with Zuffa Boxing, all right? UFC, when you talk MMA, you come out and say, oh, you know, do you watch the UFC? You don't come out and say, do you watch MMA? You come out and you say, do you watch UFC? And that is ultimately the goal for Zuffa Boxing. They don't want you to come out and say, do you watch boxing? They say, do you watch Zuffa? Do you watch Zuffa Boxing? All right? Nobody goes around and says, you know, PFL or Bellator or anything else. When you talk MMA, they say UFC. All right? And that's what Dana White has done to that sport. And Jai Opetaia, we don't know what Zuffa Boxing is going to become in 10 or 20 years, but the fact that Jai Opetaia has the chance to be the leading runner of that organization and what events they could put on is very, very, very exciting for Jai Opetaia. And the opportunities it could grant could be massive, because working with Zuffa, working with Ring Magazine, not only do you have opportunities to be on these massive cards in the US, but you also have the opportunity of these guys have a lot of money to splash when they want to make the fights. And the fights that I want to see for Jai Opetaia in the immediate future is Noel McCallion. That's the fight to make. He couldn't get Badu Jack for ages because they can't mandate a unification, and Badu Jack just didn't want a bite of it. Noel McCallion, I think with the right opportunity, with the right money thrown at him, he will take that fight. He will take that opportunity, and Jai Opetaia will have the opportunity to become a unified world champion. And for me, that is a key part of what I hope to see for Jai Opetaia, because if he gets that WBC, he's got the IBF and the ring, and we've got Zurdo Ramirez taking on David Benavidez for the WBA and the WBO. I feel like, for myself, I think Benavidez is going to wipe the floor with Zurdo Ramirez. All right, I think come May, he beats Zurdo Ramirez, he gets his hands on the WBA and the WBO, and he's left with a choice, and that choice is, do I drop down to light heavyweight to take on Bivol Beterbiev or whoever has the belts? Or do I stay here and have an undisputed bout against Jai Opetaia for all the gold? And that opportunity there, I feel like, is one that Benavidez will not be able to turn down. But that opportunity only comes if Jai's able to get that Noel McCallion belt. I feel like Benavidez will look very differently at unifying an IBF with his WBA and the WBO, very differently to the way he will see an undisputed bout against Jai Opetaia. I think they're two very different opportunities. If you've got a choice of an undisputed at light heavyweight or a unification at cruiserweight against Jai, I feel like he's always going to say, well, I'm going to drop down and I'm going to do that first, and then if I want to move up to cruiserweight later, I will. So for me, I think the next few months will play a big part in Jai Opetaia and what we can see from him. Like I said, there's a lot of mystery going around with what Zuffa Boxing is going to hold, what events they're going to do. And it's very intriguing. It is very intriguing. I can't wait to see this weekend, see what sort of event, although small, what sort of event they're going to put on, and hopefully they do talk a little bit about Jai during the broadcast, and what their plans are for him, what names they're being thrown around, what event are they being thrown around for Jai Opetaia, because this guy here, he's the king of Australian boxing, and I believe that he can be one of the kings of world boxing. I do believe that. I think he can dominate a cruiserweight, all right, against those other big names, and I think he can move up to heavyweight and at very least compete with the big boys. I'd love to hear what you guys think in the comments below. What do you think of this partnership with Zuffa Boxing? Like I said, there is a lot more mystery around this than I would like, because there's not a lot of information. This isn't an organization that's been running for 5 or 10 years. This is a organization that this weekend we're going to see their very first event. But it is very exciting. The people and the names that he's going to be working in and around are the people that Jai belongs to be working in and around. All right, we know how big Tasman Fighters is in Australia. All right, and this promotional deal with Zuffa Boxing will grow not only Jai Opetaia, but it'll also grow Tasman Fighters and what they can build, which is exciting for Australian boxing as well. All right, please do like the video. We're chasing down 500 subs, so I'd love to get there sooner rather than later. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. I do try and get back to everybody. The interaction is very much appreciated, and I'm out of here, guys. See ya.